Hey there, this flipped lesson is going to be over sections 4.3 and 4.4 about the different types of elements that you will find on the periodic table. First type is the metals, and we should talk about the physical properties of metals, which include luster, malleability, ductility, and conductivity. So what does all that mean? That means metals are good conductors of electrical current and heat. The luster is how shiny it is. They're usually pretty shiny. Reactive. They react pretty easily with other substances. They can become corrosive. Bendable, malleable, and ductile. Malleable means to be hammered out or rolled into flat sheets. Think of like aluminum foil. And ductile, all of these metals can be pulled out into a thin, long wire. And they're the largest group in the periodic table. So how does the reactivity of metals change? The reactivity of metals tend to decrease as you move from left to right across the periodic table. So if you're looking at a periodic table much like this, these are the most reactive metals, and as we move from left to right, they become less reactive. The first group here is from lithium down to francium, and those are called the alkali metals. And they react with atoms of other elements by losing one electron. These react the most. They want to bond right away with another element. Group 2 is the alkaline earth metals, and they're not as reactive as group 1, but they're still pretty reactive. This large group in the middle is called the transition metals or transition elements, and they're less reactive as groups 1 and 2. And only some of the elements in groups 13 through 15 are metals. The parts that are shaded right here, you can see, are the ones that are metals. Lanthanides are usually found together in nature and combined with other elements. And then the actinides, which is the row below that, they are so very unstable that they only last for a fraction of a second after they're made. So we have some things that you may have noticed in your periodic table in your text that were called synthetic elements. And synthetic elements, like this one here, means that they're man-made and that we produce them by forcing nuclear particles to crash into one another. So now let's talk about noble or nonmetals, inert gases, and semimetals. So nonmetals and inert gases. Nonmetals, most of them are just the opposite of metals. Poor conductor of electrical current and heat. Solid nonmetals are dull and brittle. And when nonmetals and metals react, electrons move from the metal. This is our metal here, sodium, and it moves from the electron moves from the metal to the nonmetal. So nonmetal is an element that lacks most of the properties of a metal. Diatomic molecule is a molecule that consists of two atoms, like N2. Halogen is group 17. That contains fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and acetane. Those are all salt forming, the salt family. Inert gases do not ordinarily form compounds. Those are like the noble gases. Neon, xenon, the very last column in the periodic table. Semimetals have properties of metals, but also have properties of nonmetals. And a semiconductor is something that can conduct electrical current under some situations, but not others. So looking at the families of nonmetals, this is the carbon family, and they can gain, lose, or share 4 electrons when reacting with other elements. So they're pretty versatile. And then the nitrogen family contains 2 nonmetals, nitrogen and phosphorus, and they usually gain or share 3 electrons when reacting with other elements. The oxygen family here, oxygen, sulfur, and selenium, they are usually gain or share 2 electrons when reacting. And then this was the halogen family, and they usually form compounds by sharing or gaining 1 electron. And like I said before, the inert gases or noble gases, those are usually found on their own. They aren't usually found bonded with anything else, so they don't gain any or lose any or share any electrons. And then hydrogen, because the chemical properties of hydrogen are so different, that's why it's in the very first column on the left, but separated from the periodic table. So it really can't be grouped into a family. Semimetals are useful, like this silicon chip here, which is in your computers, because they have varying abilities to conduct electrical current and heat. We want it to conduct electrical current, but not the heat. So now go to the form here, and that's a 0 at the very end. and answer the questions for this flipped lesson. And remember, you have to use your pleasantonusd.net email account to access the form. Thanks.